It's every Red Raiders' favorite podcast. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hi, how are you? Good afternoon. Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com with Dr. Mike Gustafson. I'm Aaron Dickens. We're joining you here from the Overton Hotel and Conference Center, the official hotel of Texas Tech Athletics. Here with you until 6 o'clock. Of course, the Red Raider football team will take on Oklahoma tomorrow evening at Jones Stadium. Kickoff at 6:30. We'd love to hear your thoughts and comments on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at doublet97.3.com. All guests appear via the Benchmark hotline. Gus, how you going?
I'm good. Ate too much. Probably paying for it. It's just kind of that feeling like I didn't have a huge lunch today, but I still feel full. Having audio difficulties. Struggling through. Post. How did your welling?
No, I think that's worse, actually. I think it's right the first time.
Yeah, I think something's.
I think that's the mic.
Ooh. Well, we had big news. I'll do the monologue for a second. We'll get your headset. The USA and England tied, and I heard that that's the first USA to shut out a European team since 1950.
Right, against England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a and there was an upset in our bracket, I guess, in Iran beating Wales. I assume that's an upset.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. USA's kind of set up for this game like it's a I won't say it a one-game playoff, but win and you're in. Win and you advance.
Yeah, I mean Wales is now essentially done. They're toast, which is fine. And it's hard to be glass half empty after a result like today, where I think that you exceed expectations. I mean, you're the third youngest team in this World Cup,
right?
And England, I think, one of the favorites, and across the pond, they're predicting a 4-0 win for England, or
is that right?
A pretty lopsided.
I figured they thought they would win.
Sure.
I don't know that I didn't know that they were.
And so to play them to a draw, I think, and I get how. I guess the great thing about having this conversation on the Friday after Thanksgiving is that we're not going to get any of the texts about it's like kissing your sister because everyone's at home eating leftovers and in a food coma. They're not driving around and about. But I think, from that perspective, it was a very good result for the U.S. They played well. They exceeded expectations. They remain unbeaten in this World Cup. But if you're going to be glass half empty about kind of the path ahead, Iran just needs a draw, and they advance. And so they're going to pack it in. They're going to be, play way defensive, try to muck things up and not give you really any easy openings. There's not going to be kind of this open flow to the game. You're going to be kind of batting your head against the wall for 90 minutes. And that can be challenging, especially with a young team.
And I've watched Tech soccer, the girls or women, play teams that have done that against us, especially back when I don't know, we were on the upside with talent in a couple of different settings. In other words, when we were the more talented team. And we played the whole first half down on their
side,
end, and that may be what you're talking about in turn. But you go in, 0-0 at halftime, 0-0, and it's a frustrating thing, and then the other team, all they're trying to do, if they're not trying to tie the thing, at least you'll see in women's soccer if they're either playing for the tie or maybe if they can get one long shot. Somebody mishandles one little deal, and it's a fast break, one-on-one desperation play, and you might look at it and go, we kind of controlled about 85 minutes of that game and lost 1-1, or lost 1-0, or tied 1-1 or something. And so it's a hard thing to I'd say it's a hard thing to watch. But hopefully they'll make a play and get something done because I'm
That's Monday, right?
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, but yeah, I was also interested to hear the third, and I'll confess I was listening to that on the radio coming over, and just they're giving some background and some of the type of things that I hadn't seen yet. But, yeah, the interesting sports day today, obviously the Tech OU game's big tomorrow, and we're coming out of our Thanksgiving and all that. But at this very moment, we've got – you and I talk about enjoying live sports during the show.
We've got our choice.
Maybe no better day for this.
Yeah, we've got.
It feels like a pregame show is what it feels like, because you've got umpteen games going on.
Missouri and Arkansas looks to be on the main TV there in the bar at the Overton here, because that's where we are today. I think Arkansas up 7-3 in the first quarter.
Yeah, we know a referee in that game.
We do.
You and I do. Yeah.
Nebraska and Iowa underway right now. Nebraska in the news because of a report coming out earlier today. I think Chris Lowe was the first to have it.
That's what I thought.
Kind of framed it this way. But then others have kind of jumped on board, as is typical in this case. Essentially, and the phrasing here doesn't matter. The fact that they've gotten this far with the reporting indicates, hey, it's going to be Matt Rhule at Nebraska, which is something that you and we kind of talked around on Wednesday, because I made a prediction early in the show that, hey, I don't think Rhule's involved. And then we see a column from Steve Sipple up in Omaha who says, hey, Rhule's back in play. And maybe he was never not in play, but either way. And so that was kind of the roller coaster that we rode on Wednesday, and now it looks like Matt Rhule to Nebraska is going to happen.
Well, and the other part of that was the idea that, he's been impressive enough that he's gone from Temple to Baylor to the NFL, and those are to survive Temple. First of all, is a big deal, but to survive and advance from there, and then come to Baylor in the wake of they had some talent on campus in the wake of Coach Briles, but they also had distractions galore, to say the least. It was a
program in disarray.
Yeah, it was a mess, and it was in some ways you might say it was a university in disarray, which is why it's he goes from there to the NFL, and now he bounces back into another pretty good job. Now, I'm not going to say it's a Nick Saban-like move, but it's akin to that in terms of a guy doing a good job in college, going to the NFL. It's not his cup of tea, and lands back at another pretty good college job.
Is that like a USA-England pun?
Oh, I didn't think of that.
Did you do that on purpose?
Yeah. No, I didn't.
Just getting started here on Tech Talk. More next on Double T 97.3.
It's every Red Raiders' favorite podcast. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, it's the Juice on Double T 97.3 and DoubleT973.com with Dr. Mike Gustafson. I'm Aaron Dickens. We're joining you from the Overton Hotel and Conference Center, the official hotel of Texas Tech Athletics. Some headlines. Earlier today, the United States men's national soccer team scored a draw against England 0-0. It was the U.S.'s first shutout of a European team in the World Cup since 1950. The U.S. now will need to beat Iran on Monday in order to advance out of the group stage. Wales, it seems like, is completely done. I think that's right. But either way, big match on Monday for U.S. soccer. College football going on right now in the Territorial Cup. Arizona leads Arizona State 10-7 with 6:22 left in the first half. NC State leading North Carolina 7-3. NC State down to its third-string quarterback in that ball game. That game is just about to enter the second quarter. Missouri leading Arkansas 10-7 in the first quarter there. Missouri needs a win in order to obtain bowl eligibility. And early on in the first quarter, Nebraska and Iowa scoreless. I know, you're shocked. Speaking of Nebraska, the Cornhuskers have zeroed in on Matt Rhule to be the program's next head football coach. And according to ESPN, the two sides are working on finalizing a deal in the coming days. You too can join the program. We'd love to hear from you today. Let us know what you think on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. You know what I will be very interested in with Rhule, Gus? I think there's no doubt he can coach, right? There's no doubt that he is he's got a big Rolodex, it seems. He seems very, very adept at filling out his staff with the right people and the right jobs. There was a lot of question about that when he arrived at Baylor. Like, what's this Yankee going to do in Waco?
Yeah, from Philadelphia.
Like, how's that going to work?
Sure.
And it was great. He hired a bunch of high school coaches with great connections, including one that's now the head coach
including our
at
guy.
Texas Tech. And it was awesome. I mean, it was one of the more one of the better hires, really, in recent memory in college football in terms of kind of finding the right fit for your job, even though on the surface it didn't seem like it. The curious thing about Rhule here, though, is, and the Huskers are going to get all kinds of attaboys and POBs for this hire, and it's going to be graded well when those kinds of features are released by the national publications. But for all of his success at Baylor, for all of his success at Temple, all of that might as well have occurred in the prehistoric era, right? That was pre-transfer portal, really kind of becoming what it is today, and it's pre-NIL. And those two things have completely changed the landscape of college football, of recruiting, of roster management. And for as awesome as Matt Rhule seems to be as an on-paper candidate for any of these jobs, and as excited as I would be if Rhule was taking over my program and I was a Cornhusker or whatever, his kind of empty track record with both of those things would kind of give me a little bit of pause. Not that it's going to wreck him. It's just he hasn't done it yet. Yeah.
Yeah, and seemed like a smart, adept guy at program building and reading the room and those kind of things in a way that the aptitude is there. He's not in a final interview this morning going, wait, NIL, what? You know, I mean, the dude's tuned in on that, and he may very well have been on the phone with Joey McGuire going, hey, what's this about these days? You know.
What's this NIL thing?
Yeah. This has changed in the 2 years since I left. But, the other thing, and, the Nebraska that I knew as a child, and we even heard this early in the Big 12 when they were still in the league, the third largest city in the state of Nebraska is Memorial Stadium on a home game, and a zillion sellouts in a row and all that. So the support is there. It is the only show around. Now, there may be, there's probably enough oxygen in that fan base to probably enjoy with a little more volume the Kansas City Chiefs now, because that's just 3 hours down the road and a pretty exciting product. But, I'm sure that their ability to tap into some folks who want to participate in the NIL game, and it's there. It's there in a state like that, in a city like Omaha. I'm not saying it's the University of Texas level or Michigan or Ohio State or something like that, but it's there. You don't sell out 90,000 seats all the time if you don't have some interest.
Oh, I think Nebraska is ready to, like, the institution, the program,
right,
the fan base. I think they're ready to fully embrace NIL. I guess my question with Rhule, or for any coach in this kind of bridge period, is, how much do you embrace that reality, right? How comfortable are you with players getting paid, some getting paid more than others? And are you able to adapt and, interact in a positive way with players as they kind of navigate the realities of, okay, well, I'm getting paid, so my expectations are this, or this guy's getting paid more than me, how does it make me feel? All that stuff. Because, I mean, from a head coaching standpoint, it's not like Rhule or McGuire or anybody is, like, directly negotiating.
Right.
Well, let me go back to it's like a used car salesman.
Right.
Let me go talk to my manager and see what we can do. Right?
We go talk to the GM.
Let me see what numbers we can get. So it'll be interesting. And another kind of difference between now, Rhule at Nebraska, and then Rhule at Baylor or Rhule at Temple is he's going to face some expectations right away, right? When Waco or when Baylor hired Rhule, it was more like, who? Like, oh, I guess. I mean, let's see how it goes. But, I mean, people are going to be really fired up for this, and for good reason.
Sure.
And so you just wonder how much difference does that make? And speaking of Nebraska, they just scored on Iowa. That might be enough. 7 points. Unless the Hawkeyes defense can score.
Well, that's a good point. I think of course, you and I have talked about this too. I don't know that it's such a daunting task to go in and have some success relatively soon in the Big Ten West. And I think our key example was what Illinois has done, in 2 years. I don't know how much Bielema has really impacted their roster in a way that, oh man, ever since he got here, he hit the portal and this and that and this and that. But I just know that in 2 years, he's probably rallied those dudes in a way that they're excited to play every Saturday, and they're probably organized pretty well. And those are the type of things that I would think Matt Rhule can do, unless they've got serious talent deficiencies in certain areas, If he's got some personnel there that he can come in there and get them organized and excited to play, and maybe that's worth a win or two.
More Tech Talk next.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hello there, it's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3, DoubleT973.com with Dr. Mike Gustafson. I'm Aaron Dickens. We're joining you today from the Overton Hotel and Conference Center, the official hotel of Texas Tech Athletics. And if you want to stop on by the Overton and have a drink or get something to eat, we have tickets to give away. We have 3 pairs of 2. I'm sorry, we have 2 pairs of 2. Nope, 3 pairs of 2. One was hiding behind the laptop. 3 pairs of 2 tickets free to tomorrow's Texas Tech Oklahoma game. Thank you very much. All you have to do is just show up and grab them. There's no hoops to jump through, no trivia question. Just roll up and grab them off the table. If we're talking into our microphones, we will not be able to interact with you. But again, 3 pairs of tickets, Texas Tech, Oklahoma. Potentially your last chance to see the Sooners in that stadium, at least for a very long time.
Yeah, the foreseeable future, I don't think I would just be surprised. I would be surprised if, of course, we await. Well, what do you think the timing is? And I guess this is as simple as me saying, when do you think the Big 12 is going to release this schedule? But I'll ask it this way. Do you think there's a timing like, hey, let's do this in concert with the build-up to the Big 12 championship game? Like, is there a moment that you would tether that to as the Big 12 office to say, hey, let's create a little excitement with the announcement of the schedule?
I would almost think that if you haven't done it by now, right, then you just wait until the regular season ends. So maybe the week after, like next week sometime. Or the week after.
And that's what I'm saying. So that would be the lead into the conference championship game next Thursday or Friday, a way to gin up some excitement.
I think you wait until there's very little college football news kind of, and then you try to suck up as much oxygen as you can. So maybe even next week you wouldn't want to do that because you have Heisman Trophy, you have conference championship games, you have coaching carousel.
Bowl announcements a week from this coming Sunday. Yeah, and so perhaps that following week then is – because it really will die down for basically at that point teams are either looking forward to 2023, the 2 or 3 that don't make a bowl game, or everyone really what it is on a lot of campuses. It's you're starting to roll into final exam time, and it gets quiet for a little bit.
You know what? If I'm putting my own $20 on the
Sure.
table, I would say the week of the 5th through the 9th.
Yeah,
Because at that point you're done with conference championship games.
you got a
You're
lull.
done with Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
It's before the early signing period starts, right before bowl games. That's about going to be as pristine of a window for you as possible, unless you wait until like March. Which
Unless it goes into
right?
post national championship game and all that. And I don't know what because a lot of schedules don't get announced. Like Tech didn't put out last year's schedule until in terms of the actual release until a February window. I think it was in that period of time. But what we're talking about here is a little bit different because we all knew this time last year that next year you'll have Texas in town.
You knew where, maybe not when.
He didn't know. Yeah, he didn't know when. Yeah, you knew kind of what the
Who
conference game rotation was, and the non-conference games we usually know about. We're sitting here right now knowing that if what we believe is correct, that we open at Wyoming probably Labor Day weekend, and then come home to play the Ducks, and then I believe it's Tarleton State. Now, is there an open day in there or whatever? I don't know. Or one of those games on a weird Thursday or some Friday night thing. I have no idea. That's the kind of stuff that isn't moved around and announced till early summer. But, we, as you and I sit here today, we have no idea who we would play because it's a formatting question, and it's going to be a two-off deal because for the next 2 years there's 14 teams in the conference.
You just like punch yourself in the
I
mouth
did.
there
I went
almost?
like that and popped my microphone. Sorry. Yeah, and so it
could be anything.
14-team schedule that's only going to be in place for 2 years, and so it's a weirdo. It's a weird scenario.
We get this from Tracy in Dallas on the Yates Flooring Center chat line, frequent texter. Hey boys, if Rhule does head to Lincoln, any chance we lose any of our assistants to the Huskers? Someone else also asked. Along those same lines, does James Blanchard stay at Tech or go to Nebraska? Yeah, I think that if you are a fan of any college football team, you go into the offseason going, okay, there will probably be some movement. Because odds are there will be. Either somebody gets fired, they retire, they go take another job someplace else. That's just the nature of the beast. Am I as a Texas Tech fan worried about James Blanchard going to Nebraska? No, I think that you are going to be very competitive there to keep a hold on to the people that you want to keep, and so I feel fine. I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. I think he's great at what he does. Mm-hmm. I really, really hope that he stays for a long time, whether Nebraska offers him or not. And if Nebraska does pursue him, then I feel confident that Texas Tech will do what it needs to do to keep him.
And I think one thing that helps, just if there's a gravitational pull at this point, and that's my word, there's probably a desire to go, no, I want to, I'm excited about this. We're growing something special. There's some momentum in recruiting in a bowl game, and I'm not saying that's the sort of a gravitational magnetic pull that says, "Hey, Ohio State, I'm not interested in your job offer," but perhaps a lateral move or something. I don't know that we'll see a ton of that. If one of our analysts leaves to get a position coach somewhere, that's not the sort of thing that you and I are talking about here. And that is exactly what you're saying, that happens all the time. A few years ago it was Kitley leaving to Houston Baptist. And, those type things are, in fact, they're probably a mark of a healthy program a little bit, especially on staffs as big as the football and basketball staffs. It's your younger dudes coming up, getting the opportunity to move out and start their careers is good, but that's clearly not what the question's asking about. It's specific to Blanchard, and I'm with you. He seems to be right there with Coach McGuire, tight and loving life.
Yeah, I think that like Tim DeRuyter, his name will probably pop up a lot, especially like depending on what happens at Arizona State.
ASU, yeah,
right?
That's a big one.
More Tech Talk next.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hi, how are you? Good afternoon. Happy Friday. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Alongside Gus, I'm Aaron. Clint is back at home base taking care of us. Right, Clint?
It is I.
Okay. We'd love to hear from you today on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at doublet973.com. All guests appear via the Benchmark Hotline. We're joining you today from the Overton Hotel and Conference Center, the official hotel of Texas Tech Athletics, and the official Lubbock Hotel of the Texas Tech Alumni Association. Clint, figured I'd go ahead and just rip this Band-Aid off. Do you want to wax poetic about your guy getting an extension and staying at Kansas?
Well, I don't want to gloat and say for like 6 weeks I've been saying something along these lines would happen, but I did, and it did. And it feels pretty good, Aaron. Feels pretty good.
I mean, it should, legit. I mean, I know we're having fun with this, but that's pretty good. It's a pretty good, that's a good land for them, and seems to be a great fit.
This is how we felt when Tadlock spurned Texas.
There you go. Yeah, well said.
Good. I don't feel good for Clint, but I feel good for Kansas fans.
Which is fair. But I will say.
Like people that have actually followed Kansas football for longer than 6 weeks.
Right. Yeah, like
this
very new agenda that I've had out of nowhere this year has just felt really good to capitalize on it, right?
Well, I mean, we had explained, how the down system worked back in August, so it's,
Wait, so they can't move? How do they run a forward motion offense?
What's this forward pass thing you talk about?
What's this cloud defense? Why is it not a box and one? What are we doing?
And so now you wonder, if there will be any coaching carousel ripple effects in the Big 12, right? Because with Matt Rhule appearing to be on track to land the Nebraska job, you would think that Chris Kleiman now is not a target for anyone. I don't know that Arizona State is targeting Chris Kleiman, for example. I don't know that that's a great fit. Of course, everyone will be watching Neil Brown to see if he gets dismissed. There's some chatter out of Morgantown that they actually might have an AD in place, or at least announced and hired in the coming days, which would be a very accelerated timetable. But if that happens, then you might see a move made on Neil Brown. But other than that, I mean,
boy, if I was interviewing for that athletic director job, wouldn't that be a question that I would? I mean, the candidate would ask the employers, "Hey, what's going on with this Neil Brown fella?" I mean, let's just put the cards on the table. Well, am I going to have to fire this guy a week into my job, or what are we talking about here? Is there pressure on me to do this, or how is this going to go?
I think that it might be viewed as a positive thing, right? If you are an AD candidate, and they've targeted, I think, Rob Mullen at Oregon, who I believe is a WVU graduate. They've targeted the Wazoo AD, Pat Chun, I think is their name. If you are someone that they're looking at, that's an attractive part of the job. That's a plus, because you get to immediately make your own imprint on things and hire a football coach, whereas if you were to go into a situation with an established guy, you can't touch that program.
I didn't go far enough with my scenario, because you're right. You get to there's maybe a white hat aspect, at least to a fan base. If that coach is unpopular, and that appears to be where they are, they're at least done with Neil Brown. Where I'm going with this is about that $20 million buyout. How much of that's going to be saddled on me and my department versus no, we've got a way to take care of that, or we've got a plan to mitigate that, or we've got a fund to move some money here and there, like that.
I thought the way that Auburn handled Brian Harsin was maybe not the build-up, but the execution of the final move. I thought that was about as clean as you could get, right? Because the university announced, right before the new AD was introduced that, hey, Harsin's done. And then you bring in the new AD.
Mm-hmm.
And so the AD can benefit from the positive feelings of the fans, the alumni, the donors of hey, ding dong, the witch is dead,
right,
so to speak, while at the same time having their hands clean.
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska leading Iowa 10-0. Huskers just recovered a fumble, and
I thought that was going to be a scoop and score fumble, but
like
it was
a
scoop and 40-yard run or thereabouts.
Huskers looking for their first win over Iowa since 2014, which
again,
long time.
Again, the type of thing that they're not really comfortable with that in Nebraska, because in the heyday they were dominating the Big Eight, and then trading blows with Oklahoma, right? And the once in a blue moon that a Missouri or Colorado or Kansas or somebody snuck up on them and got them, or OU, just happened so infrequently. And so for them to come into a conference and be running off 7 and 8 game losing streaks to other programs that, at least historically are inferior to what they've been, but I would say that the Husker fan base has swallowed plenty of bitter pills over the last 15 to 20 years relative to what their fathers and mothers and grandfathers and grandmothers experienced. What do you think about the when you think about Nebraska, you got the leading passer in the Big 12 last year, most touchdown passes. Wasn't that the caveat with Thompson at Texas, that he didn't he lead the Big 12 in touchdown passes, I think, last year? It wasn't a huge number.
He probably hit that number just from that game against Texas.
Yeah,
Tech.
yeah.
Let's see. He had the most touchdown passes of anybody in the conference.
Yeah,
24.
And it wasn't a huge number,
right.
But and then goes, and obviously didn't finish the year as the starter there, and goes in the portal and goes to Nebraska, and now looking at a 4-8. Probably not the dream scenario.
How do we feel about McGuire and Hines having hot chocolate at 3:54 on a Friday afternoon?
Maybe there's something in it. Maybe it's adult hot chocolate.
I don't see any schnapps. More Tech Talk next.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hi, how are you? Good afternoon. Happy Friday. It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3, Double T 97.3.com, and the Double T 97.3 mobile app, presented by Happy State Bank with Dr. Mike Gustafson. I'm Aaron Dickens. Clint Scott back at home base, taking care of us. We'd like to thank the fine folks at the Overton Hotel and Conference Center for having us here every Friday before Tech home football games. Of course, this is the last Tech game of the season, but we're joining you today from the Overton Hotel and Conference Center, the official hotel of Texas Tech Athletics. Score update from Iowa City, Nebraska, now leading Iowa 17-0 with 10:51 left to play in the second quarter. That might as well be 50-0.
Yeah, the way that Iowa defense has played, the way the Iowa offense has played, that's, they like their counterparts across the state have this year have lived in that 14-10, 17-14 range a few times, and it is a good defense, but this playing from behind 17-zip for this deal's that's a big number.
Let's put this in perspective. Here are the teams this year that have scored 17 points or more on Iowa. Michigan, and Ohio State. End of list.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good list.
Michigan scored 27. Ohio State scored 54. That's it. I mean, that's the list. And so if you're Iowa right now, if you're an Iowa fan, with, as you pointed out to me during the break, the Big Ten West title on the line, win, and you go
win and you're in
to Indianapolis to get ritually sacrificed against Ohio State or Michigan. And you're just blowing it against a not very good Nebraska team at home.
Yeah, that's the tough
at
part.
Home.
I mean, and they draw well and et cetera. And I actually got to walk around in that stadium this spring because Tech Baseball went up there and played, and as is often the case, like your getaway day, post-game showers and stuff, a lot of times they run them over to the football stadium. We do that here on Sunday, and so I didn't need to shower. Jamie and I did. There was no media, any of that, but we finished a post-game show walk over there. And one of the cool traditions that they've got there is the hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, Children's Hospital sort of I mean, it's right next to the stadium, like across a little street, and so the upstairs children, at a given point, I don't know, into the first quarter or whatever, everyone in the stadium turns and waves at the little kids that they're over by the window, the kids that are in the Children's Hospital, and now getting to see that, just because I thought, well, maybe are they waving like across the street at the Overton, to Jones Stadium, like way over there? It's right there. And so it's pretty cool setup. It looks like they got about 70,000 seats there. I'm sure we could look that up, but it was cool to get to see that in person. But I tell you that's and no way I'm saying Nebraska's going to be up 17 zip early. They had the big strike touchdown early, and then another field goal and that turnover, kind of a big, almost not really a scoop and score, but they sacked the quarterback and took it back. And boy, you talk about a dream scenario to get up big on Iowa and then just do all the things complementary that set your defense up for success, because it's not a very good team. Well, offensively,
they're a terrible offensive team to begin with, and they're not built to come back from a deficit. And even though it's still super early, it's not even midway through the second quarter yet.
Right.
There's still plenty of time, but I mean, yeah, man, like a pool noodle to a gunfight is basically what Iowa brought to the table today. And
I mean, the interesting thing is they're so much like – now they've had more success this year, but they're so much like Iowa State. Two really good defenses in that state right now. Mm-hmm. Two bad offenses. Now, to Iowa's credit, I assume if they lose this game, they're a 7-5 club going bowling, whereas Iowa State didn't pull that off. But when these two teams faced each other, it was Iowa State that finally broke through this year and won, because they'd lost, 5 or 6 years in a row, right?
Yes.
Yeah, in that game. And again, I'll say this, of course, neither of these that state rivalry's been in place. It's been a Big 8/Big 12 versus Big 10 school. Nothing's changed there, but they've kept that thing going, and it's one of those games, 2 or 3 weeks into the football season in September, it doesn't send shivers down our spine, but it's usually an interesting game to look at in and amongst a sea of hey, Baylor's playing Tarleton this weekend. Yeah, well, the Iowa State games is being played. There's passion in the stands, and it's a fun game to keep your eye on mid-September.
Apparently, the Iowa starting quarterback dinged up during this game, and so now they're playing with their backup just to kind of make matters worse.
Just to make that 17 points look a little bigger.
If this score holds and Nebraska wins and Iowa loses, then Purdue would go to Indianapolis if the Boilermakers beat Indiana.
Don't you know Indiana would love to play spoiler?
Yeah.
Somebody's got a chance to back into that thing. And like you said, I assume, housed by Ohio State.
Yeah, or Michigan, either way.
Yeah, certainly the winner of that game, but the Ohio State side of that thing's the one, because Ohio State can be really explosive. I mean, them putting up 50 points on Iowa was pretty impressive.
Did you watch any of the Egg Bowl?
I did. I watched the end of it. Yeah, and they had the beer cans flying onto the end zone. They had some antics. And what I didn't see, I read a little bit, social media following and that sort of thing. But just because there was rumors on both sides of that. I mean, rumors about this being Leach's last game.
And Kiffin even kind of acknowledged that during the postgame press conference. He said, there were rumors that this was going to be Mike's last game, and that's maybe why they called their defense the way that they did, because there is no next game. I don't know, but I was surprised that he kind of addressed that head on.
Kind of put it out there.
Yeah.
And and now we wait, right? I mean, and again, I could see where Auburn would be. There would be nothing moving until the Iron Bowl tomorrow, just to give Auburn, the Auburn kids, the Auburn team, the opportunity to compete in that game that is so important in that state before any action starts happening. But there was nothing said in the postgame show yesterday.
You've been listening to the Tech Talk podcast from Double T 97.3. Check out Double T973.com for more from Lubbock Sports Station.